My name is Professor Y.S.R. Murthy. I am the Executive Director for the Center for Human Rights Studies, OP Jindal Global University. In this paper on national mechanisms for protection and enforcement of human rights, we will take up today the role of higher educational institutions and trade unions. We have already seen the role of National Human Rights Commission, the commissions for women, minorities, scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, children, the persons with disabilities, the denotified nomadic tribes, and then there is a civil society comprising of media, non-governmental organizations, educational institutions and trade unions. So, what is the role that is played by the civil society will be the subject matter of the examination in this module and subsequent modules. At the end of this module, you will be able to understand the kind of activities taken up by higher educational institutions in furtherance of human rights. You will also understand the role played by trade unions to further workers' rights, workers' aspirations for decent work. If you look at the higher educational institutions, they are established as for imparting knowledge and developing skills. The underlying purpose of this exercise is to be a responsible stakeholder for the public. These institutions are supposed to serve the community in which they are situated. Today, there is a recognition that university social responsibility, we have been hearing of CSR, corporate social responsibility, on the same lines Y.S.R is there, which requires sustained community engagement. The universities have increasingly begun changing their pedagogies towards a more programmatic or more pragmatic approach. Media, NGOs, trade unions and higher educational institutions are a part of civil society. There are many ways in which the civil society contributes to the protection and promotion of human rights and complements the role of the three wings of the state. This module will explain the role of academic institutions and trade unions in effective realization of human rights. If you look at universities, what do? They take up teaching, research and documentation. Human rights PG courses are offered by several academic institutions across the world. These courses examine the role and relevance of human rights actors, activities and mechanisms used to protect and promote human rights. The Center for Human Rights Documentation and Research at Columbia supports the community of teachers, students, researchers and law, social justice advocates working in the multidisciplinary sphere of human rights. There are similar examples elsewhere, University of Essex, Nottingham and there are many other examples around the world. The Human Rights Center of the University of Norway at Oslo acts as a resource center on abolition of death penalty. The National Law School of India, University Bangalore hosts a chair professor on human rights instituted by the National Human Rights Commission and a chair professor on refugees instituted by the UN High Commissioner for Refugees. A number of activities are taken up by these chairs. Shadow reports or parallel reports or alternate reports are a method adopted by civil society organization to supplement or present alternative information to the treaty monitoring bodies. By submitting a shadow report to a UN treaty body committee, NGOs and higher educational institutions can highlight issues not raised by the governments or point out where the government may be misleading the committee from the real situations. Shadow reports may be presented to all of the human rights treaty monitoring bodies. Academic institutions also prepare such shadow reports as a key stakeholder in the public sphere. Columbia Law School's Human Rights Clinic submitted a report in 2014 to the UN Human Rights Committee as a part of its review of US compliance with the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. It highlights the fact that millions of poor, low-income individuals in the United States have no access to a lawyer when facing a crisis such as deportation, eviction, foreclosure, domestic violence, or loss of subsistence benefits. The International Human Rights Clinic at Harvard Law School, along with advocates for US torture prosecutions, prepared a shadow report in September 2014 for the UN Committee Against Torture on the review of the periodic report of the United States of America. It presented the findings of the investigation on the status of the torture programs authorized by the US government as a part of its war on terror. Such instances can be multiplied across the world. Now let us turn our attention to legal intervention. Universities either have legal aid clinics or dedicated human rights clinics that take up projects to address human rights concerns. While they may not directly file petitions for human rights violations, they are pivotal in identifying and researching violations and then supporting pro bono lawyers to approach courts for remedies. For instance, the Harvard Law School International Human Rights Clinic has developed substantial expertise in litigation, integrating students in court-based advocacy in a variety of ways. Its projects involve state and federal human rights litigation in US courts as well as litigation before international bodies such as the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights and the Inter-American Court of Human Rights. In recent times, students have co-drafted amicus curiae briefs to the US Supreme Court on corporate accountability, filed a suit in the Ohio Supreme State Court for professional misconduct of a Guantanamo psychologist, prepared oral arguments on prison abuse in Brazil before the Inter-American Court of Human Rights, and researched for universal jurisdiction cases against US officials accused of torture during counter-terrorism operations. Now let us look at what else do these legal aid clinics at higher education institutions do to spread literacy and awareness. Universities, through various cells, often take up issues like right to food, right to education, right to health, and so on and so forth, organize camps to raise awareness about them. This also presents wonderful opportunities for the students to engage directly with human rights issues on the ground. The programs are undertaken widely, including in rural areas and sometimes as part of village adoption programs. Civil rights related guides and manuals are translated in local languages and disseminated free of cost. Such programs are also undertaken in cooperation with non-governmental organizations and even governmental authorities. In India, several law schools have been imparting legal knowledge and awareness to the general public in their respective locations through their legal aid awareness programs. These programs also involve the representation of incapable litigants in the courts. Some of the notable examples are as follows. There is a legal aid clinic at the Jindal Global Law School, Sonipat, legal service clinics at National Law School, Bangalore, and many other national law schools across the countries and other universities teaching law. A program initiative by the academic institution on protection of child rights is let me give you some instances of that. The Center for Child and the Law at National Law School, Bangalore integrates research, direct field action and teaching on child rights law and uses law and social legal strategies as a tool for transformative social change in order to enable children to live with dignity. The objectives of this research center are to enable children to be treated as rights holders, to help institutionalize the human rights based approach into policy, law and practice on children, to build the capacity of state and civil society for more effective realization of child rights. Center for Child Rights, National Law University, Odisha, specialized research center that aims to improve access to justice for children and promote research, advanced learning and advocacy to strengthen child rights laws, policies and practices in India. There are many more such instances. Let us look at the Center for Human Rights Studies at OP Jindal Global University, with which I am associated. In December 2016, the Center for Human Rights Studies launched the Human Rights Clinic that aims to assist victims of institutional violations of human rights, along with a focus on furthering academic research and bridging the practical divide in the present human rights curriculum. The center also organized 2 regional colloquium for state human rights institutions jointly with the All India network of NGOs and individuals working with national and state human rights institutions for the training of state human rights commissions from North India during 15th to 16th of July 2016 and also in August 2016. The Center for Human Rights also organized a 6-day capacity building program in human rights development, law and management for officials from the Afghanistan Independent Human Rights Commission between 11th to 16th of March 2017. In a research intervention, the Center for Human Rights Studies at OP Jindal Global University has provided assistance to petitioners in the case of extrajudicial encounter victims' families association or EFAM Manipur versus Union of India, which is currently pending before the Supreme Court of India. JGU students were engaged in the project, which involved field work and assisting in research and data collection in Manipur in pursuance to the orders of the Supreme Court. The death penalty project undertaken by National Law University, Delhi also is an important example. The NLU Delhi, in collaboration with the National Legal Services Authority, carries out this death penalty research project in furtherance of creating a socio-economic profile of death row prisoners across India, as well as map their interaction with the criminal justice system at different levels. Honorable Justice Sadasivam, in his capacity as the executive chairman of NALSA, approved the project. The death penalty project aims at filling that gap by tracing the journey of the convict through the bewildering labyrinth of the criminal justice system, including the difficulty in accessing legal aid as well as the consequences of its structural limitations. It has interviewed around 300 prisoners, their families, lawyers in various states of Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Karnataka, Kerala, Madhya Pradesh, Gujarat, Delhi, West Bengal, Assam, Punjab, Haryana and Rajasthan. Now, higher education institutions have a role in training as well. The law schools in universities collaborate and conduct training programs with government institutions. Such programs are often meant to sensitize government officials and prepare them better for a variety of circumstances affecting the rights of the citizens, which they face during the course of their service. The Jindal Global Law School, along with the University of Cambridge, received a contract for a joint training of senior Indian police or IPS officers. Under this program, over 500 DIGs and IGs had been trained in the year 2010 and 11. CBI sends its officer for training at Indian Institute of Management, Bangalore and National Law School for modernization in the agency. Dr. Ram Manohar Lohia, National Law University, Lucknow, has organized 3 All India training programs for prison officers on personality development in the year 2008. These examples can be multiplied. Now, let us look at trade unions. Workers' rights are human rights, and trade unions have a mandate to ensure that workers are not exploited in any manner and that their interests are fully protected. Trade unions understand the labor challenges in their country and often have practical ideas for overcoming them. They are central advocates for the promotion of decent work, as they are closest to the labor force. It makes them natural stakeholders in employment policy making. No one can speak better for workers than their unions. The trade union movement has been crucial in the realization of human rights. Now, let us turn our attention to some of the best practices in this regard. Over the last decade, trade unions have organized rural informal workers into rural workers unions, reaching 1,72,270 members by 2011. These unions set up 14 workers information centers which help more than 83,800 informal workers to access social security schemes. Hind Mazdoor Sabhas fight to curb water pollution. At Ratlam, the entire water requirements of the railways for the sheds, wagons, passengers, station staff and railway colonies are met by the reservoir made at the river Kurel, 13 miles away from Ratlam. According to the union's report, on the western side of the Ratlam-Ajmer meter gauge line, about a mile to the north of the Ratlam station, is an alcohol plant. The effluents from this plant were discharged into the open fields around the meter gauge railway line. During the rainy season, the discharged effluents of the alcohol plant flowed into the river. The constant flow of the polluted water not only contaminated the water of the river Kurel, but with time the pollutant seeped below the earth's surface. The union demanded an immediate halt to the practice of letting the pollutants simply flow into the river. They collected samples of water and had them examined at the railway's water treatment plant. The water samples were found to be unsuitable for human consumption, and on further investigation was found that there were several other industries responsible for the pollution of the river Kurel. The Union demanded an inspection by the authorities. The official inspection report confirmed problems discovered by the union. The union took up the matter with the railway management, asking the divisional superintendent to take appropriate measures to ensure the supply of clean potable water. The union also played a commendable role in getting water from other places. It also insisted on a certificate that verified the water's cleanliness. The union drew the management's attention to a water resources drying and suggested alternatives, and insisted on a rational system of distribution and preventing wasting water through repairing overflowing tanks, leaking taps, and installing new hand pumps. The union printed leaflets and distributed them among the workers to make them aware of their rights to a clean and adequate water supply. As a result, the railway authorities have provided clean drinking water for the railway colonies and the staff. Some of the polluting industries have installed pollution control devices, while others have not. The relevant authorities are taking action. Industrialists can be politically powerful and savvy and manage to avoid the requirements. The pollution of the river still happens but is less frequent. Legal action taken by union activists in association with other local groups required the repair of sewage lines and diversion of the canal carrying the effluents so that they do not flow into the water source. Also, the immediate crisis, though it was resolved, the situation from the long-term sustainable point of view is not very satisfactory, and much action still needs to be taken, including sustaining pressure on the local authorities to improve the situation for both the workers and the community of Ratlam as a whole. Now, let us turn our attention to the role of trade unions and in the task of protection and promotion of human rights. And according to International Labour Organization estimates, 1.39 billion workers worldwide, almost half of this total workforce, nearly 60% of the workers in the developing countries do not earn enough to lift themselves and their families above the $2 a day poverty line. Millions of workers have no direct representation, no social protection, and engage in survival activities. Trade unionism is a means for these workers to liberate themselves from poverty and social exclusion. Workers use trade unions as their representative voice to demand their rights and improve their living and working conditions. Unions were formed to defend the economic and political rights of their members, their families, and society at large. Strong, independent, and representative trade unions are essential to the effective advocacy of workers' interests. Trade unions have a key role to play in influencing the choice of priorities for the national employment policy. They also have an important role in precisely defining the statement of policy objectives. Trade unions have a role to play in discussing various policy options to achieve the objectives, bringing their own information to the debate based on direct experience and involvement with the membership. Unions are also interested with organizing union education, for example, to train health and safety representatives. They can be involved in workers' education by conducting literacy programs. They can participate in labor studies to analyze, for instance, the sociological makeup of the working population of a country, and they can provide sponsorship to enable individuals to take courses. It's important to recognize that unions can be involved in the whole continuum from union education to workers' education to labor studies. Trade unions are also well placed to act as watchdogs and to take direct action to prevent child labor and remove children from the workplace and help provide the alternatives of quality education and preparation for the adult world. In summary, academic institutions have a critical role to play in operationalizing human rights, which goes beyond mere teaching and research. In this module, we have made an attempt to show educational institutions can bring about changes in their unique, non-biased position, while at the same time encouraging its students to make it their profession to protect and promote human rights of others. Workers' rights have been safeguarded not only in India but even world over. Trade unions form an integral part of this as the workers' collective bargainers with the employers. They have continually played a critical role in alleviating and shedding light on the violations of the rights of the workers. The examples illustrated in this module portray the different ways in which trade unions time and again come to the rescue of injustice. Besides being natural stakeholders for dialogue with workers, trade unions have evolved various measures to engage with other government bodies and the civil society. They will continue to play a significant role in this area. Thank you.